Welcome back, everybody. We are now back live and ready to go. Croy, who we were incorrectly not talking about as having been DC'd from the game, is now back and ready to go. And before we left off, I was extolling the virtues of the slightly more slow and steady comp that Cratos are running over the dive from Lunaris.
Yeah, and Lunaris were able to put that one round on the board, but it's still a matter of fact that their composition on paper should be having a rough time into Cratos's, especially with default running out on the McCree, can stun a lot of the flankers. But once he gets those stuns, first off, he has to land them, and second, you need to collapse on the target.
Lots of anti-dive opportunities here, as like it's a big dash through. Can't quite take out the immortality field. Will be down with a little help there from Arexu. We're going to see them start to back away and kite towards point a little bit here. Like with another dash through, getting very close to that ult. Arexu with the sweeper finds the triple. And this looks like it might be a first cap here for Lunaris.
And kudos to Lunaris. They definitely earned that one. They played beautifully around the effective range of Kratos' composition, right? Kratos moves to that room because they want to draw Lunaris into a place where it is not going to be healthy for them to play in. Instead, Lunaris just pokes him from a distance, whittles him down, and finds people who are low. So now they're going to have ult advantage, they're going to have positional advantage going into this fight.
Oh, dive comes through and the focus fire from Arexu knocks Micro completely out of it. The stick completes, but it's only going to find the Orisa, and Borkin fortifies his way out of that and gets revenge. It's 5v5 now for Lunaris and Cratos, but Cratos not pushing in too quick just yet. And they've got the Dragon Blade to deal with, but the stun is there, and that's two ults completely nullified. Rally now on board for Gunther. We'll see 2 kills coming through here from default. Pure tries to equalize things with the self-destruct, but finds a big fat nothing. And as we round the 50% mark, it looks like Kratos are going to flip the points.
There I want to talk about the difference between the two Genjis, because Light played Dragon Blade very much old school, where you dash up, you blade, and then you run into the enemy team, right? The problem is you're going against Halt, Accretion, Brig Bash, and the Flashbang, right? So that's pretty ambitious. Whereas Maxwell waits a little bit longer, and even if he was going up into a composition that had more stuns than Lunaris does, you still draw some of those out, and a Blade later in the current meta has a better chance of working.
Let's see this next initiation coming through as Noctis procs the rally, but we've got the amplification matrix, and they don't want to go toe-to-toe with that because a couple of taps here from default will knock them out. So we're going to see a lot of that rally nullified. Big flash, bigger headbang, Arexu down. The stomp completely takes default down. Rory has already used the Gravitic Flux, not too much effect, and is now trying to bathe in that immortality field and keep himself alive as the dive comes through. Displacement kill on Borkin, but Rory is still here, lands the rock, the boop is there from Gunther and takes them down. 45% climbing now for Kratos, and they've won this team fight.
Well, Kratos, they lost a lot of players, though. They need to get those players back to the objectives so they can play on point and draw Lunaris in. It's what they've been wanting to do the entire time against this dive composition, and in that fight, it worked very well. You're going to have the Dragon Blade available for Maxwell, too, so if you can get Bolby or Light to overextend, use their mobility cooldowns, they're going to be pretty dang vulnerable. Light's got a blade of his own, though.
Oh, no!
But he's not going to have a chance to use it.
Out flashbang default on the high ground, can't commit the entirety of the high noon. Instead, going to do the old drop, roll, fan the hammer. Gets the angle there on the brig, lands the flash, but Micro has already taken Noctis out of it. And this is 81% now. Last fight territory here for Lunaris.
And for Lunaris, there's no time to win this fight how they won the first fight, right? There's no time to play slow and just poke until you find someone low enough to jump. You gotta go in with Blade.
Well, speaking of which, out comes the Blade. No, Nano Boost as well. Looks like it might not actually hit Lights on that one. Will find the double. No, he did get Light, and he's cleaving through Kratos. There's the third as Light takes out Micro. Maxwell survives a little while longer, but the flip will come through. A little more time on the clock here for Lunaris.
And if I'm not mistaken, Maxwell actually used his own Dragon Blade in that fight, right? So Lunaris theoretically should win this next fight as well. They're going to have Rally to sustain. They're going to have tank ults to displace. As long as they can get a good separation with either the Primal or the Self-Destruct, there's no reason they shouldn't be able to pounce on a target. Croy needs a miracle with the Gravitic Flux, and honestly, I think he should just save it for next fight.
There's too many people that can get out of the way of the Gravitic Flux. We'll see him grab a couple there, gets the Tracer up into the air, and Maxwell focuses it down. But that's not an even trade as Bobman goes down here, and the main tank, Lewis, from your team is a big disadvantage. Dive through from Volby into the back, procs the Primal Rage, has the monkey arm swinging, looking for the displacement kills, can't find it, but it's now deep into overtime, and he may have just done enough there. Heavily pressuring Maxwell. Maxwell not being allowed to land. Drops down, pops back up with the jump pack and lands safely on the ground again. Light with the swing through, trying to deal with the wrecking ball that's back, and that's going to be Lunaris looking to take Lighthouse's default is going to go down in the last couple seconds.
Yeah, you may be able to debate how that second round was supposed to go, but Lunaris show up strong in third and prove they still deserved to win this map regardless. Gunther gets play of the game. I don't even want to talk about this. It's just a brick. What I want to talk about instead is actually how well Lunaris actually shaped up their ultimate economy. You know, in that second round, I was a little bit worried that they overinvested that one fight. I was just really being kind of a one-fight Andy, realistically speaking. Since then, it's been pretty clinical. I got to give it to them. You know, they like to use Blade early, which I'm not the biggest proponent of, but a Nano Blade early is better than a lot of the other types of blades we're seeing early, like with Supercharger or a Rally or a Sound Barrier, right? So Sluggo on the honor, doing some good work right now. It's not really a pick you see commonly these days, as people like to run the Baptiste, they like to run the Zen or the Brig more so than the Ana. But honestly, I got to give it to Sluggo. He's making it work.
I think it's a sign of a team that have a real stylistic approach to this, because we don't see that many teams really trying to run the dive and run some of the variants of the dive that we've seen from Lunaris today. It seems to be a lot easier to opt into the double shield Genji poke, because you know the whatever sits at the top of the meta is at the top of the meta because it's the most value out for the least effort in. Like, you've really got to work extra hard to make a dive work, particularly on a map like Lighthouse on Ilios, and they managed to pull that out, and again, in large part, as you were saying, to Sluggo. But as we move into Junkertown, this is one of the maps, I think, particularly Point A, where dive is really going to struggle.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to run dive here on Point A into double shield if you're attacking, right? Theoretically, you could run it on the defense. I wouldn't recommend it. Double shield is just so dang good here. You can control sightlines and choke points so heavily. I fully expect, it seems like Cratos will be starting off on defense, so I'd like to see default out on the Widowmaker. You can still run the Ashe, obviously. It's just good for consistent team fights, but when it comes to Junkertown A, at the very least, it's all about controlling lanes, controlling sightlines, and I think Widowmaker just does that a bit better.
And we have already seen Arexu, I believe, come out on the Widowmaker on Ilios Ruins. So
Light did. Yes.
Light, sorry. I'm glad that you're keeping track of this.
Yeah, no, it would have been Light. Arexu is their flex DPS.
Okay. Yeah, you know, it's late here. I can't be expected to hold everything. So thank you, Paul, for functioning as a second brain there for me. Very useful.
Look,
so, you know, Lunaris, they've got the options, at least, to run something like the Widowmaker to control those sightlines.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think both of these teams can honestly run a Widowmaker if they want. But what's not going to be viable is that dive we were talking about, right? And I don't think this is necessarily a weakness for Lunaris, but it certainly feels to me that if you're going to come out with the dive on Ilios, well, on Ruins, on every single point on Ilios, you personally feel more confident in the dive than you do your double shield matchup, right? So while I personally think Bolby and Pure are pretty dang strong in their own rights on the Orisa and Sigma respectively, there's a little twitch in my brain that goes, but what if they don't feel that way, you know? And that starts to lead into how we're going to play on Junkertown here, because dive is just so very vulnerable, especially the tanks. And yeah, you can already see Bolby. I mean, he's going to be hovering over that Orisa, locking in the Centaur.
Yeah, you've kind of got to. There's just nowhere to dive from. And as you say, you're so exposed. It's so easy to knock out a dive tank. Like, you have to have the most supreme level of confidence in your own ability to do it. And I just don't think any I don't think anybody with that level of confidence really should have that level of confidence. But, you know, we'll see. We'll see what it looks like when the offense comes out.
Like, maybe if it was an Owl team playing into, like, a team of Diamonds, they could, you know, have that level of confidence, and I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense, sure, whatever. But when, you know, technically speaking, we consider Lunaris the underdogs in this match, despite their 1-0 lead right now, I don't think that they are so proficient at the dive that they can just WM1 forward and take out Lunaris, and thus, they're not even going to try. They're just going to play exactly what you'd expect. I don't think Light will stay on the Junkrat. This is a very open map, although I wouldn't hate to see a Bastion.
Oh, I would if it was my own game, but, you know, for a team looking to make a run through here on the OG pirate ship map, not a terrible thought. Let's see how this works out for them. Not getting to cut. Oh, there we go. We've got it set up. Pirate ship ready to roll.
Oh, and this is like a galleon, right? If the old version of pirate ship where you had like Roadhog and Diva protecting the Bastion is just a standard pirate ship. This is like a man of war. You got the Sigma shield in there too, an immortality field and everything. Maxwell's gonna need a miracle in the backline right now. He's looking for Rexu.
Oh wow! Rexu just gets completely driven by Maxwell and knocked off of his perch. And this is gonna be this pirate ship completely sunk here. Slugo goes down, did get the sleep off, but that is it. And it's almost impossible to get the Bastion back on the cart, particularly at this point in the match.
Bro, Maxwell, that was clean. Not much else to say about that. And like you said, yeah, I mean, if you get removed from the objective as a Bastion, you're not getting back to it. So Light's going to swap over to the Widowmaker, rather. Arakasu is going to be on the Tracer, interestingly enough.
Light?
So what he was trying to do there is do the Widow tech where you jump off the side and go around so that you can get to that angle without having to, like, pressure through the enemy. But he just messed up the tech.
Yeah, unfortunate. Still back on board with Maxwell, who's climbing desperately close to having this Dragon Blade ready to go. Immortality Field's out now for both teams, and immediately down again. It's going to be Borkin that gets the first pick here. Volby now down and out of the fight. We'll see the Flux come through here, and on the back of that damage, there's 2 picks. Noctis finds the first, and that's going to be it. A clean team kill for Lunaris, and a clean run through to the finish.
Bro, who even needs a Widowmaker? Take the fight 5v6, right, Lunaris? That's what I'm getting out of this. They lost Widow early 2 times. The second fight goes pretty well, and I mean, there's no recontest here available. The good news for Cratos is that because they weren't expecting to lose that fight, they didn't use any ultimates. So they've got so much. They can hold as early as they'd like here.
They very well could. I think probably going to see them elect to take some kind of high ground, but Light gets the opening pick here, and Default had the visor committed, knew exactly where Light was going to be, and still couldn't win that 1v1. And this is a very scrappy fight here, Paul. Nobody winning out just yet. Red is going to come through from Gunther. Maxwell still has the Dragon Blade ready to go, but he is being hounded by Arexu, and they now have the Supercharger on the field. Maxwell takes Noctis down. Can't quite divert enough attention to take the Immortality Field, and Maxwell now gets caught in between a whole host of members of Lunaris, but he's making it work. He's got dash resets for days, and Cratos recontests the card in style.
Oh man, and Lunaris were just a little bit all over the place there at the beginning of that fight. Once the Immortality Field was forced out of Micro so early by that Pulse Bomb, they wanted to try and pull the trigger and press forward, but they weren't grouped properly to do so. They're going to switch over to a double sniper now. Not what we traditionally think of double sniper, but Light's got a cheeky little angle. Got to be careful here, though. And both snipers are playing on similar angles. This isn't going to go well for Lunaris, or at least it should.
Oh, wow. Well, do you know what? You may have just cursed them there, Paul, because there's the double both DPS offline. Huge advantage now for Lunaris, as Light just goes full SMG, wants the disrespect kill, won't quite get it, but now here's an opportunity for Light to push forward and stymie the recontest.
Bro, every time I think Lunaris shouldn't win a fight, Pure just hits him with the Gravitic Flux move. And he's nasty with him thus far. 100% win rate this map with Gravitic Flux. We'll see if he can keep that up. Once again, no recontest here, just because of where the cart was. So we're going to have 4 healthy minutes going into point C. Rallies are mirrored. Gravitic Flux for Kra'i is available, but if Kratos don't find a way to force Sluggo's immortality field first, this is still gonna be a pretty rough fight. Even rougher now that Light's moving on over onto the bastion.
Okay, given chance to get back up on the payload with the bastion, they're gonna take it. However, Crawry knows exactly how to get him off the payload, but the immortality field and the up and down nature does allow Light to survive through that. Will get picked off by Gunther here. Maxwell with the blade, again looking for value, will find Noctis. And Kratos managed the defense once more. Light's gonna move back off that bastion. It was a nice try, buddy, but yeah, move off the bastion.
It's a pretty expensive fight for Kratos, though. I mean, they use Blade, Gravitic Flux, and Rally. I mean, Crawly and Gunther are working towards their next ultimates, so it's not crippling here for them, but they're not going to be able to take that same kind of aggressive positioning without a support ultimate. They could use their amplification matrix to just stuff a push the next time Lunaris want to get frisky. Seems like it'll be a supercharger.
Supercharger out first. Still have the sights up for all that's worth. The bob out from Arixu not going to find too much. Of course, the supercharged Genji providing a whole wealth of value. Now the amplification matrix put Maxwell momentarily on the wrong side of that, and by the time he's backed away from it, he's not got the health to capitalize on it. And now he's not really in a position to take much more of the fight. 2 minutes, 33 seconds left to go on the clock, so a good amount of time burnt here off it from Kratos.
Such good peel, too, from Lunaris there once that supercharger comes down, and they are unfazed by the amplification matrix from Micro there. Ooh, gotta be a little bit careful. Arikesu, he should be fine here. But this forward positioning, as long as Arikesu doesn't get punished, this is great time on the clock, right? And you've got Riptire, Gravitic Flux. This is Lunaris' fight to lose.
Absolutely. Light momentarily forced off the high ground, but the threat of Maxwell with the blade. Instead, we're going to see the tire come out now. Up onto the high ground, finds Maxwell, secures the 5v6. Amplification matrix up as well from the Slugo. Noctis now with the rally, looking for a little more longevity in the fight, but Kratos just give that up. You can tell from the way I phrased that I was amazed. Kratos just abandoned cart. There was nothing in it for them.
Whatever you do, Phil, don't look at chat. Nobody needs to see a letter number right now. 1 minute 45 for Lunaris.
Finish.
Kratos, honestly, feel a tiny bit rattled right now. A lot of their game plans just aren't coming to fruition. It doesn't feel necessarily like they're coming into every fight with a plan, but the fights where they come in with a plan, they're doing relatively well, and they thrive in the chaos, right? It's more a case of, are Kratos surviving whatever Lunaris want to accomplish? If so, Kratos win. If not, then obviously, you know, Lunaris have won that fight. Now Lunaris are going to switch to a very interesting composition. They're probably going to hold right at the doorway. That's what their comp is telling me right now. Bolby wants to just swing at the initial choke point. Same with Light. He'll just pelt it in. And Arikesu is going to go for any stragglers on the side. That's what they should be doing with their composition. If they give up a lot of space, they can easily be collapsed upon, as this doesn't really hold angles very well.
Yeah, you're looking at sort of like a 30 to 40 second hold spawn before the first picks come through, and then a recontest just past the archway. So let's see if they can make this work, because it takes a lot to make this work properly. In comes the push. They've got to be careful because Default has rotated off to the side as the high ground. Maxwell finds 2 with a dash reset. Looking for the 3rd now, trying to chase down Noctis. Default gets them, and this has been catastrophic for Lunaris.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Lunaris, that's like a set play they have, but it looks more like an audible they called at the beginning, because you really need to play like as a clump together in that composition, and with Arikesu and Light just getting caught out over on the side by Maxwell, that is less than suboptimal. So now not only is it ultimate advantage coming into this next fight, I mean, hardly any ultimates are really available, but it should have been positional advantage.
Okay, but here's a big advantage. Speaking of which, we'll be able to get one knocked in a second, but it's 2 for 2. DPS now off the table for Lunaris. Charge won't connect, but Pure has done a bit of work here to keep this going, but it's going to be Bolby left trying to stall this out on the point, and kind of surrounded here. The second the rest of the team turn to deal with him, that's it. He is out of this one. Backs away. Don't think they're going to let you get out of that one alive, buddy. Pure split away from the rest of the team. We see Noctis move out there to give him the speed to get back in, but Maxwell chases him down. This is looking very, very sloppy for Lunaris.
Well, Bolby, where are you going? He just charges off to the side. Coalescence is in now, but Bolby's literally gone off the map.
This is just the most chaotic fight I think I've ever seen in all my years casting Overwatch. Maxwell gets the double with the Dragon Blade, micro rounds things out, and that's going to be the cap. Just shy of 5 minutes to work their way from point B.
Lunaris feel like they are trying to play the style of if they don't know what we're doing, or if we don't know what we're doing, neither do they, but it's not working super well. Bolby's been on this Reinhardt the entire time. Same with Pure on the Sigma. Neither of them have an ultimate yet, right? We are just now working up to those tank ultimates, and they should be able to hold at least one fight on the cart with them, but only maybe.
Flux from Krari up and down again. No kills just yet, but the Reinhardt of Bolby looking a little bit damaged. You're going to be stunned out and killed before that Flux can be brought to bear. Bolby in the same position as Gunther works him down with the flail. Maxwell looking for dashes, looking for kills. Will help secure the kill on Gunther, finds Arexu, and Cratos once more take possession of the cards.
And I'd expect this to be a situation where after you've lost that many fights in a row, you switch off as Lunaris, right? But they have 4 ultimates, pretty much 6 ults on the board, so they're not going to swap. Cratos, though, are playing so well around this. They know that Lunaris just want to fight. They just want to WM1 and get on top of you. They are giving the cartoon Lunaris and picking them to shreds from a distance.
Supercharger out, but immediately focused down by the Coalescence of Slugo. But Lunaris are just pulling the trigger on pretty much everything they've got. Lever after lever, blade in, looking for it, finds Micro, can't find too much more, but Lunaris look like they've mounted the defense.
Count them, 3, 4, 5 ultimates used for that defense, though. Oh, they're staggering Porkin. That's so rude.
Why?
Make it 6 ultimates. I cannot fathom why you think the Pulse Bomb is ideal to use there.
And hits the shield.
You can get it, then you can use it to stop the next fight. You can get a pick in the background or at least force Immortality Field with it. Lunaris are literally just playing to stall these fights out. Any fight win is supplementary for that.
Oh, this has been some great angle control here from Light. Will find the kill onto default, puts them into 5v6. They are, of course, coming into a fight where the enemy team has a rally, and that's as good as having that 6-man in and ready to go. Maxwell is able to find Bolby here. Looks like kills starting to mount in favor now of Cratos, so the Light's going to punch back. There's the pulse bomb that Arexu was looking for the last time. Walking down now to the pulse bomb. Maxwell with the dash through, and the melee finds Light. Another dash reset, takes out Slugo, and this man is everywhere on the map at once.
Maxwell's playing like a nut, but you can tell Lunaris are just messing with the time bank. Look at this. They have 3 people going for a recontest.
Gunther down. Out comes the blade from Maxwell to try and punch things back. Will find Pure, finds Arexu as well. In terms of trades, the shatter for the blade, you've got to be happy with that one if you're Cratos.
Well, I mean, relatively speaking, yes, but also, it was sort of a 3v5 or 4 there, so that Earth Shatter, like I was trying to say earlier, was more so supplementary. It's more to stall time than it is to win fight and take position on the cart. Lunaris are whittling away this time bank.
Default's doing a lot of work here now on the Tracer, already 86% of the way to the pulse bomb, and putting a lot of pressure on Bolby. Bolby's gonna have to back away, looking for the Hulk Creation combo, not gonna come through. Supercharger on the high ground from Borkin, and the high ground control here from the tanks means that this is kind of their team fight to win. Recontest from Lunaris sees them take the defensive position on the cart and throw in the sound barrier. Light coming in with the blade. Not going to find too much with it. Crory able to keep his distance and find him out. Field's going to take out Maxwell though, and it is the Sigma alone with the Lucio on the point, trying to keep this going as Default tags into the pulse bomb and takes Slugo out of the fight. It is 2 and 2 on the cart with respawns kind of even here.
But look how messy all these fights are. The cart's barely gone anywhere, and it's been a minute and a half on point C already, essentially. It's just stall after stall from Lunaris.
Out comes the Sharpie. Maxwell finds Bolby, climbs the wall and finds Noctis, dashes back almost casually knocks Light out of the fight. There's the pick onto Slugo, and the cart's going to keep moving. But this is already a better time bank for Lunaris than it was for Cratos.
Well, now we get to the situation where the cart is so close to the end, stalling isn't enough for Lunaris anymore. You need to start winning these fights and doing so handily. Gravitic Flux is a good way in, but not if you don't force that immortality field first.
We'll see that come out, and now it's Micro on the high ground with the Amplification Matrix in a beautiful heads-up play that does a lot of damage into that, allowing Maxwell to find the body blow and take Bulby out of it. Unfortunately, he made himself a target, and Light takes him out. Maxwell now low as well. Deflect's going to go down. Finally receiving a bit of health, but Arixu comes in and finds one with the Pulse Bomb. Lunaris now with a 3-4-man advantage, and we've got a minute now on the clock with Lunaris in charge of the cards.
There's that fight win. They need to keep it going. Have good resources to do so, Lunaris do. They have pretty much, I mean, realistically, a nasty combination of ultimates. Light can distract for the Earth Shatter. The Earth Shatter can just set them up for Light, and all the while, double support ults available. This is rough for Cratos now. Maxwell needs kind of a miracle.
Big charge in over the top, and the Holt drags them all off again. Mortality field now down, but here's the back gap! The 2 dive DPS for Cratos.
No
they
way.
land on the top, and they're just gonna roll this in.
Okay.
But from the high road, in comes Bolt to get that recon test going. Sound barrier out, but it wasn't good enough to save. Slugo shattered now over the top as well, deals with Maxwell, and we might see this just eked out into overtime. But Light focused down by the supercharged hyperspheres of Krari sees them go down, and they will complete outside of overtime, meaning they've got a minute on the clock for their next push.
Oh man, Phil, there was so much going on all over the map there and so little time to talk about it. One thing I do want to highlight, though, as we move into Kratos' second attack run here, is if we see the same compositions, I have to be looking at the tank line of Kratos to really punish the enemy team. I need to see Gravitic Flux especially built up quickly, right? Because when you're running Lucio and Moira, best case scenario for Lunaris, they might have a sound barrier to negate Gravitic Flux, but then you're getting ultimate for support ultimate. That's a worthwhile trade. Every other time Cry uses Gravitic Flux, there is no hope for Lunaris to sustain, as long as it catches at least 3 members, right? And that's kind of where a lot of these fights have been pushing and pulling. Maxwell has been dominant with the Blaze, there's no question there, and Lunaris have been chaotic across the map. I need to see them. I need to see Kratos isolate something and attack it rather than playing into this chaotic style if they want to even cap point A here.
Well, we are going to see chaos coming out once more for Lunaris with the main Reaper. A lot of pick potential here, a lot of space control available for them, and the first pick comes through, and it's Light onto Maxwell. Even trade, though, as Light goes down. A little bit overconfident on that teleport, I'm afraid there, buddy. Look into the ice block, and they've trapped Hawkin up between the masonry and the ice wall. It's again not worked out for Lunaris, though. They're losing members at a rate of not hit, even as they try and get out.
Look, you can say a lot of things about Bulby, but you cannot call him a coward with these charges. Going in so deep at the end. But I think it's interesting that in that scenario, Lunaris don't just full commit onto the cart to try and stall time. They try and back up and save the 3 members they had. It was not really any chance that was ever going to happen. Light's got a good pick there.
Big opener, but he's revealed himself. Maxwell knows where he is. Maxwell now knows that he is a big, meaty, flying target in his preferred fight position. Light's going to get focused out a little ways here. Maxwell's doing a good job of putting pressure in. Another 1-for-1 trade there as Bulby deals with Gunther. Immortality field now down as well, but it's Crory with the consistent damage that starts to do the heavy lifting here, taking out 2. Default finds Noctis. Arixu able to TP back through out of the range of the accretion, but it is just going to be Arixu trying to make this work, and he's going to get staggered out. We'll see an overtime complete onto point B here for Lunaris.
And they're going to have a lot of ultimates coming into point B too. So Kratos should, in theory, be able to get this probably all the way through point B, if not at least halfway, right? Bulby's gonna need a Miracle Earth Shatter to set this up, and he's gonna walk past Borkin's shield. If Craw-E is paying attention, Bulby's gonna have a real tough time actually finding a good Earth Shatter.
Well, there's the pick. The shatter comes in, but it only finds shielding. And Corey with the flux is able to find double. Default finds Bulby. Slugo even commits the coalescence here, but I guess if you're trying to keep yourself in this fight as long as possible, maybe throw everything you have at it, but we're going to see him chased out of there and taken out of it by default once again. And Cratos are just gonna keep the pressure up.
Cratos are trying to keep the pressure up best they can. Good stagger there onto Pure. Okay, Maxwell actually baited me there. I thought Coalescence was used by, like, in earnest, but no, it's just the Echo one. And Pure is going to have this Gravitic Flux, but if Gunther starts stacking this Rally armor early, it's going to be fine. You're going to be able to sustain through that as Cratos. And, man, are Lunaris going to go for a recontest? This is so risky.
Default in the back will get focused out, and there's point B capped now as well. Of course, no additional time being so deep as we are into overtime. Pure's got a potential win here, but he's not going to be able to catch the speedy flanking members of Cratos, and so they can just tag back onto the car. They will find a picket with walking down, but that's immediately equalizes ball falls to Gunther. Light back over onto the Reaper, trying to be Captain Pick potential. Instead, might just be Captain Picked out of this fight. At the very least, drags out a couple of utilities, but Cratos is still on the cart and still finding frag after frag after frag.
I'm not gonna lie. I don't see a world where even with the sound barrier, 2 supports clutch out against an entire enemy team. Noctis just threw that ultimate in, and I think he definitely should have saved it. Seems like he wants to go for a swap, so I understand the reasoning there, but man, sound barrier is so valuable. Now you're not going to have that, or really much of anything other than a Coalescence and maybe a Miracle Pulse Bomb from Arakasu. Oh, nasty.
Finds the stick and takes Micro out of the fight. Here's the duplicate, and Maxwell again picking up the Moira. You get a very quick coalescence here. Arakasu has already found the double, and we've now got a Gravitic Flux thrown in onto the point. It does find kills, but Light falls incredibly low. Maxwell with the second coalescence of this transformation only just gets it off before getting taken out again. And my gosh, this is a brawl of a fight. Slugo looking like we might see enough from him to start to find the picks to finally win out this fight for Lunaris. Default with another pulse bomb, but it goes wide, and he's now left alone on the point, and he gets focused down by the coalescence. And finally, at point C, and about half of point C, Lunaris put the brakes on it.
Holy moly, Phil. The tempo in this game is ridiculously high. We have thrown it into maximum overdrive for these fights. What a distance for Cratos, though. 1 minute on their time bank, and they got halfway through point C. I mean, that crown on the Pachimari there is pretty fitting as Cratos. They got to be feeling like the kings of Junkertown right now.
It's got to be the real mold maker to have your opponent only have 1 minute on the clock and get, you know, most of the way through the map. You know,
nobody
thing that has you tearing your hair out at the end.
Nobody on defense is happy that they let a 1 minute time bank get that far. I can say that much. Whether it tilts Lunaris or not, you know, that depends on how strong their mental comes up as. But Lunaris, now we're back on their attack, and this is where we move to more the standard play that we saw way back at the beginning of this map. Feels like ages ago because of how many fights we've seen. And the thing about this is it's just much slower. Right? I mean, don't get me wrong. I would rather Lunaris run this, right? Even with the double sniper. I think it is more consistent, especially considering that they're going to have to run into long sight lines. So if they were running that Reinhardt, Lucio, Rush kind of composition, I'd be pretty worried right now. But the problem is, even with 2.5 minutes, that's not enough of a time bank to get all the way through the map, right? So you need to be playing to win every single fight.
Light thinking he maybe had a line onto a flanker there, looking maybe for Maxwell. We'll get a bit of a dink there onto Croy, but not enough to really dissuade Croy. And Light's just going to get absolutely rinsed there by the dash resets. Light taken down, and Maxwell able to find the second. This is looking like a hold, and this is probably the worst place we have to be held on this part of Junkertown.
Bro, Maxwell doing Maxwell things. If there's a Widowmaker, he is on top of them. and eliminating them. Light's gonna switch over to the Genji now. So now we have a bit of a role swap for Arekusu and Light, where normally that's not how it works. But I mean, Lunaris are trying to save 34% ult charge towards that Bob. I don't think it's worth it. I think they should have just gone with the normal rolls.
Especially when you look at the fact that Maxwell is about to get that blade online, but might not even need it. Well, okay, we're going to drag it out anyway. Takes out the Immortality Field. Reflect out. There's knocked this down. And now, just with the primary fire, that's going to be Slugger down and another hold. And this is now 1 minute, less than that by the time we see the recontest here for Lunaris.
Well, and realistically, Maxwell, he feels fine about pulling that blade out there because he built the first one in a minute. Worst case scenario, Kratos lose this fight, and he's going to have won the following fight to wrap this map up with. Lunaris, they can win this fight, but they need to be stingy with their ultimates. They need to find Pix drive.
Well, Arix, who has the bob, sends it in, hits the cart. May have landed a little bit wide of where he really wanted, and doing absolutely nothing for the team fight. Bob taken out of it, and Maxwell is the only one to fall. A small window for victory now for Lunaris in the 5v6.
I mean, but Maxwell's going to be back in plenty of time. He's got his Genji dash. Genji's one of the most mobile heroes in the game. He's going to be back for this fight as long as Kratos don't do anything unruly aggressive. One last chance. Rally and Gravitic Flux, the only things immediately available. They can sustain up to a blade, but Light needs a miracle.
Well, here's both, and the float goes wide. Nothing out of that with everybody casually stepping to the side. Maxwell with another blade. Will find nothing with it but a huge deal of space. Light with his own blade here finds the double. Looking for the third. Won't find it. Will get the reflect kill. And now it's going to be a long, painful overtime push here for Lunaris on Junkertown if they want to take us to match points.
The first fight won, Phil. So many to go if Lunaris want to get that 2-0 lead. Only a supercharger to their name. That should be the only ultimate coming up in the next fight outside maybe a Bob for Arekusu.
Does at least give them the opportunity here to maybe partially reset their ult economy if they can find some value with it. It doesn't just get immediately taken down. Love the aggressive angle here from Arekusu. Will take a bit of TNT damage, and his own TNT kind of goes wide here, and Arekusu gets caught out by the closing doors as the coach gun blasts his way back to safety, but Gunther's trying to pick it. Pure's going to go down, and it's now 5v6. Huge disadvantage now for Lunaris, particularly because Pure had that Gravitic Flux ready to go. Arekusu chased down. Oh no, this is looking disastrous for Lunaris. They've only got 4 members left. Even the Bob isn't enough to turn the tables on this one, and Default coming up on a Bob of their own. This is looking like this is as far as the payload goes for Lunaris. There's the Bob, and that is it. Ruled out on point B of Junkertown. We're at 1-1, Paul.
What a gorgeous final rotation there from Kratos. They knew the supercharger was online. They knew Lunaris wanted to keep the cart going, and that's where it would be. So they go down through the room, and Pure, he gets the play of the game, but honestly, in that last overtime, Pure had some interesting plays, whiffed a Gravitic Flux, and then got caught by that rotation from Kratos down in the room. He didn't expect Kratos to be playing that far forward, I suppose, playing that aggressively into the supercharger, but they managed to stay out of the sight lines of the majority of Lunaris, right? And sure, you know, Pure maybe had some extra damage, but a 6v1 is still a 6v1 at the end of the day, regardless of whether or not you're a supercharged.
Yeah, it doesn't take much math skill to realize that 6 is considerably more than 1, and there's really not a lot you can do. I think maybe the only time you can ever conceivably win a team fight in a 1v6 is if you just get the luckiest of all D.Va self-destructs, and
yeah,
we just don't live in that world, Paul. It just doesn't happen.
Well, I mean, a monster dragon blade is also technically a possibility, right? You know, you pull out the blade, maybe they're clumped up for some reason in a tiny corridor and you cleave through them, but realistically, that's never going to happen. And once Pure goes down, I mean, you just wait out the supercharger and go back to the cart. That's exactly what Kratos do. They play to their win condition beautifully, and now they're going to tie us up 1-1.
And if you're just joining us, as Paul said, we are at 1-1. We were expecting maybe to be at match point at this point, but we're going to be going over to our next map already. This is going to be hybrid next, and it's looking to be Numbani locked in here. And I don't know about you, Paul. I feel like it's been a long time since I've seen Numbani played.
Yeah, you know, I actually get that. I feel like we see it in the Overwatch League quite frequently, but outside of the Overwatch League, not too many people pick Numbani. So I'm interested as to what Lunaris might have up their sleeve. And it's worth noting that throughout the night, Lunaris have been much more, I'll say, variable with their compositions than Cratos have been, right? I mean, there hasn't even been, I mean, the first map they ran pretty much exclusively dive. Different variations of it, sure, but pretty much exclusively dive. Then we go to Junkertown. They run the double shield on attack, but a rush style defense. I mean, Lunaris could come out here with Roadhog Symmetra, and I would only vaguely question it and wonder if we were actually watching Avoided.
Yeah, so yeah, that seems like a Lunaris thing to do. But you know, I've got a lot of space in my heart for a team that has an idea of their own style of play, particularly when we see fairly regular complaints of metas turning stale.
Sure.
It's great that a team like Lunaris can come along and go, we're going to run dive, we're going to run a rush comp, and you know, find themselves at 5th seed in Open Division and up against the current 1st seed in Open Division. You know, it's like these guys have their own style and it works for them.
Well, and you know, I was making a joke about like Symmetra Roadhog or whatever, but nothing Lunaris has run has been like egregious whack kinds of anti-synergy or anything, right? They're running reasonable compositions to a degree that should work together. It's just whether or not they're ideal in the current state. And throughout Open Division, right, you know, you can get away with that, I think, more consistently than toward the top of Open Division here or in our Trial of Champions when you start facing up against these Trials teams, right? Because they're going to be a little bit more disciplined, harder to really get inside the mental of. So I feel like you go against a tier 3 team and you pull out some weird composition that the tier 3 team hasn't practiced against because they've just been running meta into meta in their scrims, and you get away with that, right? But Cratos thus far haven't really fallen for that. There's been some fights, there's been some times that rush composition defense definitely got the better end of Cratos for a bit, just because of how much time it stalled. But all in all, Cratos thus far steadfast.
Looks like we may have a slight desync here from Paul, but we'll keep you going through the action while we get that sorted out. We'll see Cratos starting off on the defense here, Barney, and kind of wouldn't surprise me here to see Lunaris coming out with one of the variants of the dive comp that we've seen out from them, particularly thinking back to Ilios well.
I think a dive defense and offense actually work very well on the first point of this map, right? And arguably even on the second point too. So I think as we see these teams roll out as expected, not too much different here from Cratos. I would have been shocked if they came out on anything else. But you know what? I honestly have no idea what Lunaris is going to run. I'd like to say dive works here. They're going to run that. Or, you know, once upon a time we saw Rush come up through the top room of Numbani and take control of the high ground. But honestly, Lunaris have been playing to the tune of their own bugle thus far. Yeah, I would be surprised if they rolled out on this as weird of a composition as it is.
This has got to be a debate. Even this is more reasonable. No? Okay. They're actually rolling out. I mean, Paul, what is this?
It's a good question, Phil. So, the way this should be played is you have Pure and Light go for a bit of a soft dive, pull out resources, and then when they redive, you WM1 with everyone else. Pure can get in the backline pretty easily.
Okay, goes for the pincer. We'll see the rest of the team come through. No kills just yet, thanks to that pesky immortality field. But it's going to be Bolby going down first. The tip of the spear, now no longer in contention. Arexu with the TP into the back, goes toe-to-toe with the enemy DPS, and comes up the worst the wear for it. A couple of picks here and there for Lunaris with this, but hasn't really worked out for them.
And that hard rush in from Lunaris is the exact reason I said that they should go for a soft push first, right? Because Immortality Field basically ruins the composition that Lunaris are trying to run if they can't, if they're fighting straight into it, right? Either you rush in and you immediately 6-man focus the Immortality Field and then you might be okay, or you find a way to bait it out early.
Oh, dive comes in again. The big hold together, and Light gets the blade online, but they've already lost Noctis here. We'll see them commit the Coalescence into this one, and we've got them committing the blade! And it comes a big default and Micro both down, takes a rock to the face for his troubles, but the damage is well and truly done. Second time, Charm and Lunaris are going to cap point A #1.
And it all comes down to that Immortality Field. You know, Kratos were trying to use Borkin as bait, right? And to be fair, he gets a lot of damage synced into him, right? With that Fortify and then the late Immortality Field down onto the ground. But Light works up to that blade, and once that Immortality Field is gone, there's nothing stopping him. That being said, nothing stopping Maxwell's blade coming up in this next fight, as there is no Baptiste or even a Brigitte for Lunaris. So unless Bulby gets a Miracle Earth Shatter onto the blading Genji, this next fight's going to be pretty rough for Lunaris.
Yeah, and you can see that's what he was hoping for. He's like hidden around the corner with the Lucio looking for something. Maxwell's done the damage already. There's the second with the blade. Shatter comes out as well, but it is well and truly the Maxwell show here. 4 out of that blade. What a performance.
I'm not gonna lie, Maxwell, the deflect mid blade just to get rid of that Fire Strike and send it back to Bulby. Chef's kiss on that one. That was beautiful. And now there's still not much for Lunaris. They didn't really get many impact ultimates out of that one. Primal's not gonna be enough here.
Or he's gonna start things off here with the Gravitic Flux, and it's gonna find 2. And that is it, well and truly stuffed up. They do throw 2 into this one, so they've only got the Supercharger in the next fight, coming up against a Death Blossom, potentially.
Well, and it was a very quick fight Lunaris took, right? They were like, all right, we know we need to burn this. Let's just get those ultimates out, and they managed to do so pretty decently. Supercharger is still a bit of a worry, but you can have Light and Arekasu jump into the backline and get rid of that in theory. Seems like it's a pretty early Supercharger, so this is just going to stall more time off the clock. But that is all that Kratos had to work with. So now it's a question of how few ultimates can Lunaris win this fight with? Because you need to kind of walk that line, right? You don't want to invest too little, because then you won't win. But if you invest too much, you don't win the next fight.
And I kind of don't mind them just waiting out that Supercharger here as well, because, you know, it has the potential to do a lot to reset the ultimate combo. Arexu up on the high ground with the solo Death Blossom there just to deal with default. It's going to start to open things up around the back end of the fight, and Arexu comes in deep into the back lines with the Shadow Step, finds Micro, Wraith Forms out and back in again, and oh boy, aggression coming out here for Lunaris. It costs him a couple at the back end, and Maxwell pulls out the blade, but there's nobody left else in the fight, and the cap is coming through.
But there's only 2 members on the cart. Oh, but nobody can get there. Oh, Maxwell, I'm not going to lie. I saw what he was looking for there through the multiple lines of the Matrix, but he doesn't quite land it. Now this next fight is going to be so rough for Kratos.
Okay, sorry guys, look, we had a momentary lapse in the feed there, but I think we should be back with you here. Come into this next fight, a lot that Lunaris can work with between the Sound Barrier, the Shatter, and the Dragon Blade.
Okay, yeah, I believe we are all good now. And like you were saying, yeah, this next fight, I mean, Shatter, Dragon Blade beat, there's no reason you should be losing this. It comes down to how long can you stall. A rally is a good start, but it's not good enough.
The Shadow come out from Bulby here as well, and the Bob committed by default as well. So everybody wanting to throw everything at this fight is going to be Light with the blade that helps to find 2 to start that off. Gunther goes down here, but it's not been the clearest of fights for Lunaris, as there are still members of Cratos alive and looking to keep this fight rolling through. And with the respawn so heavily in their advantage, this may well start to work out in their favor as the fight rolls on. But Slugger with the Coalescence deals with Borkin, and whilst the fight is slowing down, it is still slowly rolling the way of Lunaris.
But like I was saying earlier, it's more of a question of stall here for Kratos, and that was a nice, long, stalled fight. Maxwell going down, though, is huge. That is brutal.
And this is like the contest coming through in the last couple of seconds is going to be about all that we can manage here. And with Pure up at spawn, stalling the recontest coming through, and less than a meter to go on the payload. This is looking dire for Cratos. All they can do is try and burn as many seconds off this clock as they can. We'll see a couple of picks come through here with a bit of help from the supercharger, and they've just managed to stabilize. And now 2 minutes on the clock for Lunaris to try and make this work.
The end of that primal rage from Pure was hilarious because Bulby, low health, is like holding up his shield and trying to run away from Gunther, who's just WM1ing on him, and Pure's just like knocking Gunther into Bulby while Bulby's like, no, get it away, get the brig away from me. Oh man, now going into this next fight, I mean, Maxwell, if he gets rally armor stacked on top of this blade, it's gonna be pretty nasty, and Light does not have the same kind of support for his, so this should be pretty rough for Lunaris.
Pulls coming out first from Arexu, but it goes wide. No stick there. Light has a Dragon Blade ready to go as well, and Slugo's going to throw in that Coalescence one more time, but can't use the focus down the Immortality field. Corey finds a pick onto Pure, and the Dragon Blade coming out with Light. But that is it. They managed to backcap the car whilst the fight was happening all the way away from it.
That was an actual backcap. They did it, Phil.
Rare.
Lunaris saw Kratos' attempt at a back cap on Junkertown and went, hey guys, you know what's a good idea? Let's just do that, you know? Oh man. That's devastating. I mean, Lunaris were poised to win that fight regardless, but because of how close those spawns were and because it wasn't super decisive, there should have been another 30, possibly 40 seconds taken off the clock that now Lunaris get for pretty much free. Kratos, they're going to be kicking themselves for that one. And a 1 minute 22 second time bank on Numbani is nothing to scoff at. It's certainly not like blazing fast, unbeatable, but pretty dang good.
That's right, but I'm looking with puzzlement, Paul. The reason I had such a big pause there was I was trying to figure out exactly what is running through the minds of the players of Lunaris right now.
Lunaris are just doing what they do, man. I mean, has there been a composition that Lunaris have run where it's perfectly standard? No. I mean, even when they were running double shield on Junkertown, they weren't running the Genji Ashe as most teams are, as Kratos is running out with now. They were running like double sniper or Genji Tracer with it, or just Widowmaker Tracer for some reason. So Lunaris, their compositions are pretty much designed to make the enemy team question how the intricacies of team fights are supposed to work.
I think this might not have been the approach that Lunaris are hoping for from Kratos. They've taken the low ground here, so I think some of those installed turrets maybe not having the benefit we're maybe hoping for. See if they can come in and take the low ground. High ground position now for Lunaris means they can rain down some damage uncontested. But we've seen members isolated out from Lunaris, not able to keep themselves in this fight, and this looks like it's got the makings of a rout here. Kratos pushing in, they've got 2 ticks already, looking to cap the third, and as we see the Winston go down here as well, this is looking increasingly dire for Lunaris, and a big time bank coming into the streets first.
Yeah, I mean, not gonna lie, Lunaris, I thought they were poised to hold that. You know, they had the high ground advantage. They could have just juggled themselves onto the objective, but instead I think they saw a member far toward the coast side all alone. I think it was Default. And Lunaris sent 3 or 4 people over to try and get that pick. Instead, Default grabs one himself and gets away scot-free. Bulby might not have the same kind of luxury. Oh, it's gonna be pretty close. All right, he'll be there for this full recontest. But it's Blade v Blade right now for these teams.
Nice big hold distribution combo, and Slugo once more with that unblockable Coalescence to try and start things off here. Does buy them a lot of space here as we see Kratos start to back away from what's coming through. One pick on the board already for Lunaris though, and now the blade committed from Maxwell. He finds that double, knocks some Pure both out of the fight. Light with one of his own, nowhere near as effective, and he gets rocked and shocked and socked back to spawn. Kratos back on the car.
Yeah, honestly, Maxwell and Crawley had a very good synchronization there. Crawley catches, I believe, 2 in that Gravitic Flux, which, because you're not running that Immortality field, you're not running the Baptiste, forces a bunch of the support resources out. And then Maxwell can just blade. I mean, for pretty much free. There's nothing keeping Lunaris alive.
And I'm looking at this next fight, Paul, and even if there is a contest here, which it's not 100% because we've got a lot of high ground control here, they're running into a Bob and a Supercharger, which is a lot of damage. You're already down. They have now used the Supercharger, so everything thrown at the fight that was available for Cratos, and it's working out for them because that was very clean.
And I would have liked that fight from Lunaris if they hadn't invested the rally at the beginning of it, because now they have pretty much nothing going into this next fight. Sure, you have a Gravitic Flux. What's it gonna do? I mean, realistically speaking, Lunaris have not been able to get the Immortality Field reliably out of Micro in a lot of these fights. So unless Arekusu and Light dive into the backline in perfect synchronization and force that early, this Gravitic Flux shouldn't find much value, and this time bank should be pretty blazing.
Oh, big old flank here coming out from default. You can see Slugo ducking and diving. Won't quite get out of the way of Crory, though, as Maxwell brings out the blade one more time, finds two, up in the sky, finds the melee on to Arekusu, and this is looking like a very quick cap here for Cratos.
Yeah, now it's more of a question of how long can Lunaris stall, realistically speaking, because they're going to come out into the Gravitic Flux.
Going to get onto it. There's the Flux, lifts them up. We'll see a couple just tag onto the cart. Immortality down, Accretion comes through. Not Slugger down, and that's going to be it. It's just the ball left, and as durable as a Wrecking Ball can be, there's only so much you can do in the face of a full team of 6 and nearly 4 minutes on the clock now for Cratos.
Yeah, like we were saying at the end of last round, 1 minute 22 seconds is not bad, but it is certainly beatable, and Cratos beat it in a very healthy fashion. Lunaris just didn't feel like they ever had a plan coming into their defense. It's similar to what happened on Junkertown, realistically. A lot of those fights, it's, you know, running forward onto the cart, use whatever ultimates you have, and stalling time, but it never felt like they took it slow and looked for openings and tried to play for positioning, you know? Whereas Cratos, every single fight, there was a very clear and sensible game plan. This is why these guys nearly made contenders actual in this past season of Trials. They were ever so close. And in the Trial of Champions, you know that they're looking to prove that they could have done it.
And of course, we're still a long way from this being decided. This is 1-1 on map 3. This next point is going to take us through to match point and give us the opportunity to have that come to a 3-1 scoreline and give us that decisive idea of who is going to be coming through here. But it's been very close here. Despite Lunaris making some weird choices, they've typically been able to make it work for the most part. Coming into their next offense, we're going to see them pick up the Widowmaker here, it looks like.
So this is really a question of where can Light get to that Cratos won't be expecting. Because if he just tries to pressure through the front line, he's not going to find a whole ton of value because you've got double shield you're working against, right? I mean, maybe he gets a miracle pick onto Maxwell, who just overextends, but not so much the case.
Well, Light now has a good amount of space to work with, and Maxwell just backs into his sights, walks over the crosshairs, and Light pulls the trigger, Bobkin down, and Hawkin down even, and this is gonna be it. Like, there's no coming back from this one, and Light just on the mother of all tears on this offense. They did not see the Widowmaker coming.
And you know what? I gotta give it to Lunaris, because a lot of their compositions have been pretty questionable, I'm not gonna lie. But this is genius, because they knew on their first defense, right, that Cratos set up in that split fashion and used Borkin for bait on the side. So Light getting up onto the pillar there, up onto that balcony, splits there and controls that lane. He's not gonna have the same kind of opportunity going into point B. I kind of like to see him swap, honestly.
It's going to be 5v6 as Light falls to default, and we lose Boldy as well. Now we've got the nano boosted Dragon Blade out from Arekusu. So far, it's only going to find the Immortality Field. A wonderful job there from Cratos of just kiting out of the way her incoming damage, and Arekusu gets knocked flat on his ass. Now Maxwell coming back into the blade of his own, finds two, triggers the dash reset, back onto cart, see the self-destruct in over the top, but everybody able to dodge that. Winston, the Primal Rage going here from Volby, but falling low, even with that massive hit pool, isn't going to be able to work out for him. And this has got to be just everything coming into trying to stall out the recontest. Looking for picks now for Lunaris, coming in on the Doomfist of Light, but it's just not enough. And now there's 4 minutes nearly for Cratos to get just past that first corner on their offensive push.
And that first corner was not difficult for Cratos to get past that first time, right? I mean, Lunaris, you know, I loved how they played point A, right? But it gets to the point where, yeah, point B, I wouldn't call it horizontal, but you're not working with the same kind of high ground advantages, especially on attack, right? You don't get to set up on the high ground. You don't get to play that ideal dives positioning. So you just kind of run it down on a flat ground into tanks who love playing on flat ground, who enable their DPS to play on flat ground, and it does not work out for dive. Now they're going to run dive because they know. It's all about point A, realistically speaking. If you get wiped on point A, where that gold box is you see on your screen right now is basically unholdable. So it's all about keeping that payload from moving in the first place.
And, you know, I feel like I said that at the start of the last fight and the fight before that, and like, I'm looking at what Lunaris are running and thinking, you are making things so much harder for yourself than they really need to be. Like, Cratos, you know what they're going to be running. Like, run a direct counter, run the mirror, run something that you're not going to be relying on knife-edge characters like Doomfist to find picks.
Well, and to be fair, there's not really a quote-unquote counter to what Cratos run, because it is just straight up the meta, right? This is the composition deemed most consistent by the majority of the professional Overwatch world as far as, you know, running it. Although the Echo's an interesting pick.
Dive comes back through. Immortality Field now out quite early for Micro, but there we go. There's the opening pick, and Light goes down. A huge amount of their pick potential is now off the table, whilst Maxwell has pick potential of his own for days. Finishing Beam comes out, has to reload, and so won't quite be able to track down Aritsu. Kills are there for Cratos. They've already got 2 ticks on the board. Lunaris are no longer in this fight in a meaningful way. Volby goes down. We'll see Light coming back in, gets picked. But it might be too little too late as Light goes down now. And now that golden box of victory, just a casual stroll away from point A. We'll see the in there from Slugo, but all for nothing.
Yeah, I mean, you can call this curtains basically for map 2, right? I called the Echo an interesting pick. You can see exactly why Maxwell is running it, because although the Genji is more consistent, wins you more team fights in the long run, it's not about the long run. You got the focusing beam. It deals ridiculous damage to anybody who gets low. That's how you find a singular pick. It doesn't deal as much damage throughout a team fight, and with Arcus getting this blade, the next fight's a little rough. But all in all, Lunaris is still
stuck. Aritsu down as the blade was about to come online. There's 3 picks already for Cratos, and this is all over. Bar the crying on Numbani. There's the DMech. TNT in over the top. Oh, actually, we just saw the nano boost come through to keep Pure in the mech, but it's going to be a big old Sig-9 there as Cratos lift what's left of Lunaris off the point and take us, Paul, to match point.
Play of the game.
Kudos to Cratos, man. It was a little funky on Junkertown, but it really feels like they're just playing their own game and not letting the wily compositions of Lunaris get the better of them anymore. I mean, they've been so wonderfully consistent this map. And going into the next one, I mean, it's hard to expect anything else. This is why Cratos, you know, were the expected winners of this match. Lunaris, I think they have played really well considering how many different strategies that they've brought out. But one of the reasons in Overwatch, right, we get to the point where it's one meta composition is primarily being run by most teams is because you can learn how to perfect that and play it against a wide variety of things. Whereas if you play a wide variety of things, sure, you can catch teams off guard. You can mess with their mental, and an unprepared team will not be able to adapt. But when you're going up against somebody the likes of Kratos, eventually they figure out just stay solid, stay consistent, stay together, and do what we know to do, regardless of whatever it is Lunaris is.
I think, Paul, we looked at this at the start and said this has the potential to be a very, very close match. You know, looking at the number one seed in Open Division, previously in the running for making contenders, against the number 5 seed, who obviously weren't in that contenders trials environment, but just by dint of being a very strong team with a high overall SR ranking,
Sure.
have hit that 5th seed. And I think this is really delivered. Like, the scoreline kind of reflects just how close this has been. But every map we've been to so far has been back and forth. Like, we've had 2 runs through Junkertown, 2 runs through Numbani. We're coming up on Temple of Anubis now, and I'm expecting at least 2 runs through this one. Like, the complete rate for these guys has been phenomenal. And the fact that we're coming down into time bank rounds every time says just how close this is.
Oh yeah, and I think Kratos have done a good job of adapting, but that's not to undersell Lunaris, right? I mean, they play a wide variety of compositions, but they haven't looked necessarily bad on the vast majority of them, I would say. That first attacking composition on Numbani was a bit of a question mark for me, but ultimately, Lunaris are just showing how flexible they can be. And I think if we were in a world of hero pools, right, if we had something different coming in than just no hero pools, we're playing Genji, Ashe, Brig, Bap, and Double Shield, I think Lunaris would... There's a strong argument to be made that they would even be leading in this.
Yeah, there's the underlying concept of Overwatch is you swap your character when you are being countered or when you need to counter somebody. And
that was the original idea.
If that was the game we were currently playing, I would have a lot more faith in Lunaris because of just the range of things that they're able to play to a very high level. It's not what we got. We've got a game that has a very well-defined meta, which you can look around the guys. It happens in pretty much every game. It's not unique to Overwatch. That ability, that flexibility, just isn't rewarded in this environment for them. Instead, they've got to work extra hard to make what they're doing work.
Yeah, and I think we are going to throw it to a quick break here, as apparently my mic is acting up. So we'll sort that out and be back in just a second, guys.
assures me that he's now fixed his microphone. So hopefully that's all done and dusted, and we should have a nice, clean, crisp audio environment for your entertainment. And of course, if somehow you've just joined us in this very small break and you're wondering what's going on here, this is, of course, the Tournament of Champions, which is a charity fundraising tournament, both for the teams competing and for our charity, Pank One, the Pancreatic Cancer Research Charity. It's a 50-50 split. We've chosen to support pancreatic cancer because it's directly affected members of the Elo Health family. And it's kind of an under-researched cancer, so there's a lot of work to be done there. So we're happy to be able to take part. And where we are at the minute, it is currently 2-1 to Cratos. Lunaris putting up an interesting fight here, but not quite able to eke out the win in Numbani. And we're coming into our next map, which is going to be Temple of Anubis. And what do we think, Paul? Are we going to be seeing some adaptations from either of these teams, specifically for Temple of Anubis?
Well, what I'd really like to see is for people in the chat to type !donate and make sure, even if you can just give $1, half of that will go to Pank One, the charity we have partnered with, and the other half goes to the prize pool for these wonderful players that you are enjoying watching. But what I think of Temple of Anubis is that we're still going to see some weird stuff from Lunaris. Especially, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of the behind the scenes here, because in the match chat, Sluggo, the support for Lunaris, said, guys, we should run a weird comp and try to throw them off. So they know exactly what it is that they are doing, and they know exactly that they are going to keep doing it here on Temple of Anubis. I don't expect anything to change from these two teams in terms of how they've been playing thus far. I think it would be more surprising if Lunaris came out on the standard double shield, Genji Ashe, etc. that we've been seeing most teams use.
Yeah, I do like Pure's comment at the end of that of, yes, we are playing stupid comps. I wouldn't have used the word stupid, but I'm a caster, and I've got to put it in like caster terminology, where you say, like, that's an interesting comp, but it's got really
there we go.
Around. It's an interesting decision.
It's a creative comp.
What we really mean is, well, that was stupid.
Hey, well, to be fair, it was Pure who said that, right? We're not calling it. It's his words that we're using. But realistically speaking, I mean, Lunaris, you can call them interesting, stupid, creative, whatever you want. But they've been giving Cratos a run for their money, right? I mean, this is a team, again, if you're just joining us, if for some reason you haven't kept up with Tier 2 in NA, Tier 3 in NA, etc., I get you. There's a lot of Overwatch to actually try and keep up with. But Cratos is a team that nearly made Contenders actual for next week's tournament, right? They were just 2 maps or 1 series loss to square one away from actually making it there. So this is a team we obviously expect to be doing very well. It's, you know, they come in as the 4th seed of our 12 invited teams for a reason.
Both teams very highly seeded in open division at the minute, and of course in this tournament for a reason, and those reasons have been on very clear display in today's games. And hey, look, Paul, surprise, surprise, Cratos coming out with the standard Genji poke composition. Who would have thought it, huh?
I mean, anyone who has watched the last 3 maps, hopefully.
Oh, okay, yeah. I see.
If you haven't lost the last 3 or watched the last 3 maps, maybe you got a little bit confused here, but Cratos, they're not going to be confused. They know exactly what it is they want to do, and oh boy, I am not surprised at all if Lunaris run out with this. Junkrat, I mean, Temple of Anubis, it's basically Junkrat's playground. Okay.
Normally on the defense, right?
I mean, you would think, but also Lunaris have been less than standard in their compositions thus far. I mean, they're still less than standard. They're running Wrecking Ball and Zarya as their tank line. This is ambitious, and Bobby's not even going to get into the room.
Bobby moving a little bit too fast there to get through that archway and just focused down by Cry. That's a rough start for Lunaris.
Well, and this composition is going to be pretty rough in general. Aside of just picks constantly coming out onto Lunaris from Cratos, right? Because you're looking for Bolby to dive in with the projected barrier from Pure. But what's the follow-up after that? Best case scenario, you force that immortality field and Volby can maybe double back and get another dive, but that's not what Lunaris has been doing today. They've been hard committing to most of their dive.
And the other thing is, like, they're wasting so much time. This is a minute gone off the clock, and look at the ult charge they have. The nearest they've got is Plugo with potentially a Transcendence. They have managed to buy some space here with the roll through, knocking Borkin off the point, but they've managed to now take a high ground position and are now just trying to get out of the way of Cratos, of Light. But picks are starting to come through now. Arixu able to find one, and whilst we are engaged with this 1v1 on the high ground, Light up against Maxwell, Lunaris have just smashed this wide open, and I feel like I don't really know how. Like, I didn't see enough of how that went down to have any idea what happened.
Cratos actually got a little bit antsy. They got a little scared. They gave a lot of space over, and once Light gets set up on that angle, you have to respect it, because even though you're running double shield, if either of those shields go down or you get displaced from them, Light can easily find a pick, right? So now we're going into the second point. That first one didn't cost any ultimates for Lunaris. They can go in aggressive here. Arakasu nearly has a blade.
And we've already got the Valkyrie committed here, so we're going to get that little bit of damage boost over the top of the Valkyrie, but it's not going to keep him alive. You don't get the damage reduction that you do for the Nano Blade, and I mean, Lunaris just spent almost everything. They spent everything except the Transcendence, and it got them nothing at all.
Well, and the only reason they didn't use the Transcendence there was because Sluggo died early, right? And that's what... No, excuse me. That's one of the weaknesses of Lunaris' composition. If Sluggo gets dived on by Maxwell, who's saving Sluggo? Who's peeling for him? Especially if Noctis is going forward using the Valkyrie to try and damage boost Arakasu, right? Nobody's back there helping Sluggo. Now Volby's going to move over to a tank that can be a little bit better, but I doubt that's going to be the name of the game. And with beautiful hulks like that, I mean, Lunaris is going to struggle to even get in here.
Well, there's the value of the Mercy. You see Arixu brought back into the fight by the Res. Volby has moved over, as you said, onto the Winston, and we're going to be looking for them to try and stage here, but instead we're going to see the pull come through, connect with that Gravitic Flux, and the dive comes in from Sluggo with the Transcendence, keeps them alive through that, but now they haven't got that off the board for later in the fight, and they're going to be coming into both a rally and an amplification matrix, and Cratos flings the spheres through that and finds Volby, and that is it. Another abortive push here for Lunaris.
Oh, and that fight was nearly what Lunaris needed. They still have a couple stragglers in here too who are going to get staggered, right? Noctis especially is going to get staggered there. That's pretty brutal. Oh my god, are they staggering Pure?
Oh no.
They know Pure has Grav, so they're going to stall him because he can't get any more ult charge. That is so brutal. How...
Bullying.
Have to show that on Twitch?
Well, we'll it's happened now. We'll expect the DMCA strike to come through sometime in the next couple of days. They're normally pretty hot on this kind of stuff. Yeah, that's a really unfortunate stagger onto Pure.
Well,
rough.
And now it's gotten to the point where you've worked up to a lot of ultimates as the defense, right? I mean, that was a cheap fight for Lunaris, but they didn't get nearly enough out of Cratos to where they feel comfortable in this fight. Maxwell is still going to have a supercharged blade, so unless Pure finds a nasty Graviton Surge away from Cratos, because Cratos can still eat it with the kinetic grasp, and then you blade into it, this is rough for Lunaris.
I mean, I don't think this is a terrible combo. We've got the Valk, we've got the Graviton Surge, but it wasn't comboed with. Arixu wasn't really there to throw in the Dragon Blade at the top, which is what we were hoping for. Finds one, Micro's going to go down, but it's going to be Maxwell with the dive through, with the boost there from the Supercharger that just cleans that up, and I don't know what Lunaris were doing with those ultimates.
I'm pretty convinced that the Graviton Surge we didn't get to see on screen probably didn't catch much, so Arakasu was thinking to himself, I'll hold this blade for a better instance. But then, you know, he thinks he has his opening, he goes in, doesn't work out at all. Now we have, oh, Lunaris!
Lunaris
attacking with Bastion Junkrat?
Well, I mean, this is kind of emblematic of like avoided. This is the sort of thing avoided will run. Like
exactly.
It kind of feeds into the way Lunaris have been playing with these off-meta picks. If they can find the angles here for Arexu to find value, then this could work.
Has Rekasu just snuck his way in?
Yes, the
Do they
flank.
not know he's there? Is
What?
he just back behind them entirely? I don't think Maxwell even saw him. Okay, now he's
Oh, giving himself over now. Congrats, Arixu. You might just be becoming ult charged. They buy some space. They're getting back onto the point, and he finds one, but it's an equal trade as Slugo goes down as well. But this is a lot of damage.
Ooh.
And Maxwell's down in the middle of the blade to the concussive mine. They've got the Bastion on point. The recon test here is more or less impossible through that. It's a big sleep onto Arixu, but we will see Pure there with the kinetic grass to help him survive through that. Default with the Bob finds one. There's Balkan coming back in on the Hog, takes him down, and it was looking for a second there, Paul. So good for Lunaris.
Yeah, Rekasu actually played a little bit of a bait there, and Pure was able to get behind and punish some of the members of Cratos, but you still don't get enough presence over the point, right? You were running Bolby on the Winston. He's not able to control the objective as effectively as an Orisa was. Although that being said, Borkin's now over to the Roadhog. So we have just thrown everything out the window now. Maxwell at least gets that opening kill. I mean, that should be it unless Light gets a Miracle Riptide.
That's it. No supports. Riptide's got to be massive. He's got to get a 6-person kill. We'll find one. Arixu with the second there with a configuration tank. Desperately bunny hopping his way onto point. Just about arrives there, but does so with next to nothing in the tank. And Bolby, a valiant effort, my friend, but that's it. No HP left. Tag back in now from Noctis, but it's all just a valiant throw into nothing because you're just not going to survive the number of bodies that are on the point for Kratos.
And you know what? I actually got to shout out the Roadhog pick there from Borkin. Because compositionally, I think it actually makes a degree of sense, right? Because right now, Lunaris are just playing all over the place. They're trying to break composition, break down the actual order of operations that should be happening and just throw everything into chaos. Roadhog just says, all right, Hook, I know where at least one person is. I'm going to force somebody to come to me. And this is something I can at least control. Right? So, I mean, I don't know if I would call it better than the Orisa, but it has a degree of logic to it. And I like that. That's the kind of like little creative swaps to see. Whereas Lunaris, they're kind of just spinning the wheel of fortune every time they run out, it seems.
Yeah,
Although this is relatively reasonable.
Yeah, this makes, again, a lot of defensive sense, although I think maybe Light is having a conversation here as to whether he should be running the Junkrat. Might be why he's currently stood facing the wall.
I mean, I think he would run the Junkrat here. He ran it on attack for point B, right? Although it seems like he might actually be going back to spawn. We'll just have to wait on that one. But what I can say is that I'm glad to see this double shield. Orekasu? Orekasu. This is so ambitious. I mean, even if he gets a pick here, unless the rest of his team moves forward after the pick to fight this, he'll still probably die.
Figure down. Oh, finds the pick. I don't know he's there just yet. Oh, can't grapple out of the way. He gets hooked back in. Respawn advantage to Cratos, so they have a man advantage very quickly here. And they've got an extra one. Maxwell on the Sombra takes Slugo down. And that's going to be it. Like, that's going to be point A over. It's going to be so hard to overcome that man disadvantage. Arixu's got to get... Well, oh, hey there, Light. Light with a double. Forking and Gunther down. I'm going to stop predict how this is going to go, Paul, because every time I think I know what's going to happen here, I just get my words thrown back in my face.
Now you know how I feel trying to like color this match up against Lunaris, because there are a few fights where I say, all right, Lunaris, they should be able to do this, and then it happens, right? They actually hold that because Light just pops off. Turns out if you threw a choke point against a Junkrat, even if it's 6v4, it's still pretty difficult. It's also difficult to run out of your spawn. Arexu is not being placed up here very effectively. That's a nice hold, though.
Yeah, it's a beautiful hold. It's the second time we've seen that exchange of Deep going down to Arixu and then Arixu being punished by the halt. Light's throwing in the tire, pulling the ripcord. A lot of damage into that immortality field. You'll see Cratos pretty well. They wait for the healing to come through to take them back in. Slugo finds Maxwell. They've got the amplification matrix out now, all ready for Cratos, so they're looking for something with that, but they can't make it work. She's back out of the line of sight, and there's no space for Cratos to actually aggress with the newfound space.
Yes, so that immortality field getting forced out by the Riptire is the beginning of the end there, their push, because even though Micro invests that amplification matrix, there's nothing keeping them there, right? Nothing keeping Kratos grounded to that position. Pure can soak up all the damage with the kinetic grasp while the rest of his team pelts stuff in. Light doesn't have to be in line of sight to hit you with Junkrat, right? He can just pelt you, and now he's got an amplification matrix to do it. This is more time stalled off the clock for Kratos. We're down past 2 minutes already, Phil.
That's looking very rough here. Lunaris have actually played this incredibly well, and beautiful peel there to deal with Maxwell. They knew he was in the back, the EMP ready to go. And now Arix has control of the high ground once more. And with just 1 minute and 30 seconds on the clock, this is going to be a rough push through. They've got to find some big ult combos here for Kratos.
No one can hide. No one
And have big ults, right? EMP available for Maxwell. Gravitic Flux available too. That's a nasty combo if there was one.
Well, approaching the 1 minute mark. Beautiful positioning from Arix, who can't quite find the kill, but a lot of damage in. Oh! Flux, Riptire, and the 4K here for Light. 1 minute left on the clock now for Kratos, and not a huge amount of combos to work with.
Yeah, Cry actually used his Gravitic Flux there, right? That was your big opening move. That will damage your consistent way in for Kratos. Now you've got an EMP and just WM1, hopefully with the supercharger from Borkin, so it's still very much a winnable. But Light and Bulby set that up so well.
There's the big one. Pure is now down. Of course, no ult available for him, so could have been worse. So looking to take the high ground. Has now the line onto Arixu, goes for the spray down, ducks and dives, finds their melee kill. Finally an advantage here for Kratos, and they've still got the MP ready to go. They're going to lose default here, and so far nobody is really contesting. Maxwell up on the high ground, drops down, keeping in the fight. EMP comes out, it's a big one. It's going to hit 4, looking for the damage to continue coming through. We're down now into overtime, and not yet a certain thing. Default back in on the Tracer, trying to deal with Pure themselves on the Diva, keeping this going that little bit long. No ult available left for Lunaris to play with, and an incredibly tradey fight finally completes. 3 minutes now for a point the offense.
Maxwell wiped Luggo's sound barrier with that EMP. That is the pretty much sole reason that Kratos are actually able to win that staggered fight. And Pure actually dies pretty late here. I don't think he's going to get a 3-second respawn. He should still be back in time, though. That be an issue.
Boy, they are keeping this going. Light trades out there, though. Micro for Borkin. Not terrible there. Sorry, Micro for Light, not terrible. Respawns are going to get
Kratos. Kratos can't walk forward now. They need to wait for Micro to come back. Light's going to be there in plenty of time. Light gets one with the trap. Are you kidding me right now?
Wow. Maxwell and Default able to find the double there on that one. Again, not really in a position to properly push their way through here.
Lunaris are playing so aggressive too, because they know if they get a kill at the enemy spawn, they will be back to the objective so much quicker. Beautiful aggression. They've still got the Riptire.
Oh, wow! Light at point blank range with the Riptire finds 3. And Kratos is struggling even to find time here to generate ults. This is great for Lunaris.
Kratos have no idea what's happening right now. Lunaris don't either, don't get me wrong, but they are at least making plays. Kratos are trying to just walk up, play standard. Lunaris are not allowing them to. Look at this! 2 players going to the spawn again!
What is this? Light's going to get caught out again, but by the time there's a push back through from Lunaris, from Kratos, Lunaris is going to be back to full strength here. And still, only the Flux online and ready to go. I can see a world here where we're going to a decider map at 2-2. This is looking like such a good defense. They've now dragged this down to just a minute left on the clock. We do now have Kratos on the point in a meaningful way, as Maxwell is able to take Light out of the equation, but brought out of it by Arixu here as well. Maxwell, with the Hero Blade, finds the kill onto Arixu. We'll get the G-Mech here as well from Gunther. Immortality Field now did. Those moon boots aren't going to help you that much because Maxwell has your number. Reflect comes out as well. Supercharger here as Maxwell retreats to safety for the help after himself going in the fight. The sound barrier. Self-destruct in over the top from Pure. will find Bork in here, and Kratos have had to back away. They're going to throw the bomb and keep going, but Default is now trying to do all the hippity-hoppity-loosey of Slugo. Comes off the worst for that one, and this is looking increasingly dire for Kratos.
Lunaris are my new favorite team to watch, man. They are so crazy. In what right does Sluggo have to go back in 1v1 Default in the middle of that fight? The only right is because his team has closer respawns and they take such full advantage of that. They're gonna win. They're gonna win this.
Maxwell just gets in. He takes out Ericsson from the fight. Maxwell now has a blade ready to go. He's at half health. It's a dangerous time to be throwing the blade in. Sluga's able to find Default, and that is it. That is the left-hand side of that kill feed. Lunaris looking to have a complete lockout here on point B and take us to a decider map.
I am all but speechless right now, Phil. Lunaris are playing like madmen, and I love every single second of it. And yeah, this Riptire just goes to show it looks chaos. It looks like insanity, but honestly, Lunaris are actually prepping, right? Like there's no world where that just is a spur of the moment play. Lunaris 100% before that fight started, we're like, okay, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go aggressively halt Riptire. That's the fight. And the halt brings them so far up too. Actually, I think it was the Gravitic Flux there. But either way, halt and Gravitic Flux and the Riptire decimates them, right? And then on point B, Kratos only ever get 2 fights. 2 fights in 3.5 minutes actually on the objective. Because Lunaris plays so far forward and they're willing to take fights at the enemy spawn with players they know will be back in line. Such good reads of the map and tempo from Lunaris right now. We go to a map 5. Anything could happen here, Phil.
Well, but here's the thing. This was Lunaris' pick. They lost Numbani, so they got to go, okay, we're going to go to Anubis because they knew that they had strats that would work here. Like, this isn't spare of the minute. This was, we are a high-ranking team. We scrim a lot. We know what our players can do. So when it comes to our map pick, this is what we're going to pick this Junkrat map, because we know that Light can absolutely make that work in pretty spectacular fashion. Now that the shoe's on the other, Kratos get to pick the map. They're going to pick whatever is worst for Lunaris.
But you'd think that, but they've picked Lijiang Tower. Right?
Huh.
So if we're talking about Light and Junkrat,
yeah,
unless Kratos are running a Junkrat of themselves, which, to be fair, on Control Center, more teams have run Junkrat than pretty much anywhere else, right? I mean, we've seen an absurd amount of Junkrat in our Trial of Champions throughout the past day and a half, regardless. But Control Center has been the most consistent place for Junkrat to actually be played because it's so claustrophobic. Everyone on the map is basically a choke, right? So if Kratos opt into the Junkrat and say, anything you can do, we can do better, maybe, but that hasn't been Kratos' bread and butter thus far. They've been sticking to what they know, their compositions, the default meta that we expect them to play, right? So going to Lijiang Tower, honestly, Lunaris can pull out anything on any one of the maps, and I would probably be impressed by it.
I kind of wonder, because there's only a 1 in 3 chance that we get to go to Control Center first.
Sure.
We've not really seen too much from Lunaris in terms of things like a Pharah, like an Echo that can really come through in a big explosive way through with the die. Mostly been the Genji or whatever else complements what they're. Oh, well, do you know what? Hey, look, 1 in 3 odds, and I'm just going to abandon my point complete because, hey, Paul, we're at Control Center.
Yeah, I mean, you roll the dice and it comes up exactly as Lunaris were probably hoping for. The last map of this series, no matter what, it is first to 3, folks, here in Trial of Champions from here on out. And the loser of this goes down to the lower bracket, right? This is absolutely an important map for both these teams. The winner of this, to update people on the bracket, by the way, will actually go up and face Avoided in the next round of the winners. Avoided beat Noble. So we've already had one, quote, upset here. in our winners round 1. Lunaris, can you give us 2? Can we go for a 50-50?
And this is of course, the NA avoided, who have maybe even a stranger playstyle original avoided.
Yeah.
So, it says a lot about the strength of those individual players. And interesting compositions from both sides here, Paul.
Yeah, Cratos, they're actually not their bread and butter. Reinhardt here on Control Center isn't something, crazy or out of this world. Gonna go for the Reaper, though. Considering the action over the point, it should be good.
Well, that's going to be the first pick down, but that's an easy trade. DPS for DPS. And Default able to focus down Bulby. With the main tank now down, that's a huge amount of your capacity to mitigate damage taken out of fight. Default with the Wraith form gets out of trouble. Not going to go for the wraparound they maybe looked like they were for a second. Instead, back into the fight. Doing the Doomfist here, but Reaper, a pretty good check on the Doomfist ball.
Yeah, and Reaper right now, Default can basically play this as just a anti-push method, right? It's harder to do so when the amplification matrix is out, but if someone walks up to him, he will take them down.
That's going to be 2 picks, one through the matrix, taking both supports off the field, and that's a very difficult fight to win without some impressive ults available.
Okay, finally we have a little bit of room to breathe for both these teams. Let's just take stock of everything coming up. Light's nearly at that rip tire, and it's worth noting, Light is going to be much more impactful now than he was before. Junkrat on defense here, much easier to make work. You get to pick your angle of engagement. He's just picking up at top, though, not going for a choice.
Okay. Went in from the high ground, threw everything he could. Couldn't find too much, wouldn't like that tire out of that. As we will see, both DPS now down, and they've committed the grab. They've committed the coalescence. Self-destruct out, but Bulby shield, all the worst of that. We'll see him taken down. Had to turn back to Default and pays for it. And do you know what? If there's one thing we know about Control Center, it is the most seesaw of maps in the entire Overwatch universe.
I mean, but it doesn't have to be if you go forward and play at the 2 points. Lunaris gave up so much there. They're going to come back with a Rip Tire, which is going to be pretty nasty considering that for once, Cratos doesn't have a Baptiste.
Tires out. Oh, he will find Borkin. And with Arexu finding the punch through onto Default as well. This is going to be another retake here from Lunaris. And Seesaw swings back the other direction. Lunaris retake the points.
There we go. And finally, Lunaris are going to make this much less seesaw of a map by going forward and holding at that initial choke. This should be a very strong position for Lunaris. They have to deal with a Death Blossom and a bunch of other ults. Oh, and Arexu doesn't get the pick needed.
Yeah, even getting that bubble didn't help him through that. And he's going to dive over the side. Ryan takes out Ryan. Maxwell brings out the flare swings. Can't find Light, though. Light gets the better of him with the concussive blast. Micro and Corey able to find 2. And they've now got the numbers advantage. Let's push their way back to the point. So even having held at the choke, it looks like we might see this bounce back. Although Lunaris now back in and ready to contest. Scatter's going to put 2 on the ground. Borkin Default momentarily flawed, but there's no follow-up there. And instead, they're going to start to punch back as they find the kills. Lunaris now down to 4, stalling out here for as much time as possible. Default's going to have the Death Blossom ready to go, but won't need it here. They can save that for the next fight, and Cratos got ults to throw at this next one.
I have to shout out Gunther there, man. So many other Lucios with Earthshatter land from Bulby and have just panic sound barrier. But Gunther knew his team could still win the fight regardless. Eric can't even gonna get out of that. Now it's all Cratos.
Default looking for somewhere he can press that buffer out the Death Blossom. Might go for flank here. Will the Riptire out, not find too much, and kill advantage. Over to Cratos yet again. Beat comes out, but it's not going to be enough to save Maxwell and Micro. Now, we see the Death Blossom pulled out, and it's only going to fight, and Lunaris might still be in this fight. If it's their turn to cap the point here, it's last fight territory. There's the kill onto Borkin. It's 90-67, and Lunaris are looking to flip.
One last haphazard fight here for Cratos to take. They've got some ults to work with and nothing, absolutely nothing available for Lunaris, even close into the fight. A beautiful pick to open.
Yeah, it's now a 5v6. Not much chance of Light getting back in a meaningful way. Here's the reclip as Maxwell takes down Noxus. Default's going to find Ericsu and Maxwell still looking for value, still trying to find this last lingering pick onto the Zarya. Zarya gets run down here. Pure knocked out of it by Karate. There's the objective secured, and Cratos take us to point in the series. They've got to win one more map and move forward in the upper bracket.
Maxwell, put him on a Genji, put him on a Tracer. It doesn't matter. This man will find the necessary picks to save your team in what would have been a devastating scenario. Now, Lunaris, you've got to be worried, right? I mean, you're thinking Light on the Junkrat. That was their map that we thought was going to be the strongest for them in this entire actual full map of Lijiang Tower. Right now we go to Night Market, and sure, you can run the Junkrat here too, but it's as consistent. And Lunaris, it seems like they're just throwing caution to the wind, going for full-blown picks.
Well, a lot of opportunities here, and of course, a lot of consistent pressure comes out, particularly with the Mercy damage boost. I'm going to see Cratos rotate to the side, but they've got to be careful because there are a lot of boot mechanics in play here for Lunaris. They're playing nice and close, and I knew it was there. You knew it was there. Chat knew it was there. Gunther and boop after boop after boop for Lunaris, and they're going to cap point A. And look at the old charge Bull we got from that. That's disgusting.
Kratos, turns out their weakness is gravity. You can bet we'll never make that patient again. That is for damn sure. That being said, there's not a whole lot available for Lunaris. What was that?
Sorry, I was shouting, look, Fury's there waiting, ready for the hook for another 3 mental kill already.
Yeah, well, that's just devastating. How does Sluggo of all people find that? I mean, this is an attempted back cap from Maxwell, but his team's not really here to pressure with him, right? So he's just going to go down. Bulby getting in trade. Not a good trade here for Lunaris. Kratos should be able to walk to the objective and try to pull these more members to them, but they're taking their sweet time.
And I feel like Bulby maybe got interrupted in the middle of that minefield. I didn't see them come out, but did hear the start of that. Maxwell's going to be looking here to try and deal with the Fire Mercy, but your effective range of the Tracer not all that great. Instead, it's going to be that starts things off for Lunaris. But once again, we've lost Bulby. And again, tradey fight here. Mao closing in on a pulse bomb, and Eric's only been found one with Barrage here. Looking a little better now for Cratos, and they have actually managed to flip here, despite not having really conclusively won the fight. This stick finds Noctis. Micro's already down though, so it is healer for healer. Maxwell just able to dash through that health pack and keep himself in, and have managed to stabilize.
That was so well play there mechanically from Maxwell to just barely avoid the damage there. If he had gone down, there was a slow way back into this fight for Lunaris, but now Lunaris have to actually find an leaded pick, and Kratos should just stick to the objective. If they stick together, lay behind their shields, Lunaris' comp is going to struggle. They have to surround Kratos and collapse.
We'll see Bulby closing in on minefield, and Default just stayed way too close to the edge. You've seen how these guys have played. There's a bit of Velo as Sluga's going to fall into the abyss themselves from Gunther. Whole hog knocked into the pit by Borkin. Gravitic Flux not going to find too much on this one either. Get the pick onto Ericsu. And that's going to be it. Kratos holding here yet again. Even the minefield out from Bulby isn't going to do anything for this one.
Kratos has taken the strength of their enemy and absorbed it into themselves with environmental kills in the fight. Now we're looking at what's probably last fight. Desperate last-minute switches from Lunaris. Kratos are looking to lock down. Maxwell could basically put this all to bed with a pulse bomb, and even if it doesn't, it's still so hard for Lunaris to punch through the other 4 ults available for Kratos.
Oh, and they've got to get through the rally as well. You're going to see a pulse potential for picks. High Noon thrown in. Will find Light, and Bulby has thrown himself off the side. This is it. Devastating final here for Lunaris, and Kratos take it easily and take the series.
Kratos in a burning 5-map series. Lock it down. They even a little bit of the madness themselves at the very end there. This is a beautiful play from Bulby, but You only get so many of those in a series. So many places where you can catch the enemy team off guard like that, that is.
Certainly with that.
Not lot Lunaris the win. Instead, Kratos, they get the prize of going up and facing an even crazier team in the next round.
It's going to be quite the turn. But I feel like the NA avoided team are still trying to find their niche a little bit, and so exposure through this is going to make them stronger and stronger in Tournament of Champions. So I don't envy whoever has to play against them next. I think that's going to be a fun. Kratos, though, I think did a really good job here of demonstrating why they've been so highly seeded in Open Division and in Tournament of Champions, and looking forward to seeing how far they can take this.
Yeah, and the journey does not end here for Lunaris. They now go down to the lower bracket. They're going to meet Hour Zero. That's a match that they, in theory, win too. Hour Zero had a rough time against Nocturnal yesterday. I think Lunaris is probably stronger than Nocturnal. Definitely crazier. So Hour Zero should be struggling against them. Lunaris can still try and fight their way back through the lower bracket up towards some of that prize money.
So not out of the run just yet. There is, of course, that comeback mechanic in a double Elim tournament. You're not out of the running until you are properly out of the running. That is, of course, all we from Cratos and Lunaris. But we do have one more match being brought to you, one more match even being brought to you by myself and Paulsable. And that's not even, would of course be more games after that. But whilst we work on getting our guys loaded into the lobby, ready to go for the next one, we're going to throw to a quick break, but don't go too far because we've got more fantastic Tier 3 Overwatch coming at you in the not too distant future. welcome back, everybody. Actually, coming back at you a little bit sooner than we thought because, ditz that I am, it being so early in the morning, I'd forgotten we've, of course, got a interview with one of the winners of this previous game. So from Cratos, we've got Gunther joining us for a quick chat. Gunther, hi, welcome. First of all, congratulations. How are you feeling?
Oh! I think as everyone saw, that match makes you the kind of tired that sleep can't fix.
You're telling me it was longer than we really anticipated. I mean, we were looking at the seeding, going, okay, Kratos #1 seed, Lunaris #5 seed in Open Division. So in theory, that's an easy one for Kratos. But they seem to really make you work for it. What was it about Lunaris that made them such a difficult opponent?
So we usually practiced against a lot of trials and contenders teams. That's our scrim schedule. And they just we are very used to playing the game in a specific way that is air quotes the best way to play it. But we haven't quite mastered that style, and so in all honesty, they just came out playing really stupid stuff, and we were like, okay, this is fine, we can deal with it. And then after the incident with the pause on first map, I think it put everyone a little in a bad mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And then we half of us had our brains together, and then half of us were just going through the motions. It was a lot.
Sure, and I mean, Lunaris were one of the more chaotic teams I think I've ever seen anywhere. I don't think Chengdu Hunters play that weird, honestly.
Yeah.
And let's jump forward in the series to Temple of Anubis, right? You guys are 2-1 up. You've held them on B, and then they do this weird thing where there's pseudo spawn camping, spawn picking you outside of your own spawn when you're attacking B. How did you guys how difficult was it for you guys to actually adapt, considering that they weren't letting you play your own game?
So I think in a theoretical sense that should not have been difficult. I like to think about it as Lunaris did not win Temple of Anubis.
Okay.
But Kratos certainly lost. If that makes any sense. I feel like we very much beat ourselves on that map. We kind of had 3 or 4 ideas that we were trying to throw together, and then they light was in our spawn, and we were so busy being what the hell is this guy doing? And then he killed someone, and we're like, why is this happening? It's like when you go into your final exam and nothing is what's in the textbooks, and you read all the questions and you just go, what? And that's what it kind of felt like. And then it was just a difficulty with I hate using this term, but we had kind of bad mental. We just didn't adapt in the ways that we should have.
Sure. Well, let's talk about the next match then, because if we're talking about mental and adaptation to weird styles, you guys have gone out of the frying pan and into the fryer. As next match, you guys are going up against Avoided. Not exactly a team known for running the standard, as you phrased it, quote unquote, best way to play. How do you guys think you're going to try and reset your mental before going into that match? Because it's sure to also be rather weird.
Yeah. So I actually thought of this earlier when you mentioned the Chengdu Hunters, but I think the main difference is that, God, I can't believe I'm about to do this, but the commonality between, compare these teams, the commonality between Chengdu and Avoided is that they have a method to their madness. Okay. They do things with a distinct reason and style, whereas when we played against Lunaris, they were playing musical heroes. We didn't understand what was happening because, we couldn't know what they were doing because they didn't know. And that just messed with us. Whereas I feel like Avoided, I don't want to say is predictable, but as much as it's they play weird heroes and do weird things, they have a method to how they.
They're doing the same weird things every time. They're not just pulling out of a draw. Yeah. It's
not when we would go for ult tracking or talking about next fight, we would be holding tab to look at the enemy team, and then we would say, "Oh, Bulby's on ball now." Okay, no, wait, he's on Winston. No, wait, he's on Ryan. He's back on ball. Okay, he's sticking monkey. Okay, he's sticking monkey, and like that would just mess with how we were trying to pre-fight plan because we were trying to figure it out.
Sure, well, fair enough.
Yeah, it sounds like a difficult thing to work through, but you won out in the end. I think that's probably all from myself and Paul. Is there anything you'd like to get off your chest? Anybody you'd like to shout out before we let you return to your team to celebrate?
I'll give some shout outs if we win this whole thing.
Oh, okay. Saving it. You're saving it.
Yeah. It's more special if it's like, big and important at the end.
You don't want to make your praise lose its value. I can respect that.
Yeah, of course.
Cool. Well, Gunther, thank you very much for joining us, and again, congratulations on your win today. Looking forward to see how your next match turns out. And for everybody else, we are going to go ahead and take us another small break while we wait for our next team to get into the lobby ready to go. But again, don't go too far because we're going to be right back.